What's up everyone, today we're going to take a look at the Marvel Legends X-Men 60th Anniversary 3-pack of Gambit, Banshee and Psylocke. As usual, please like, comment, share, subscribe, or even hit the super thanks button. I do appreciate all engagement on my channel. Now here's a quick look at the box. Up front we see renders of the characters. There's the Uncanny X-Men artwork in the background. On the top of the box, we see the X-Men 60 years anniversary logo. Down to the bottom of the box, some product information. And on the side, it's snippets of the 3 characters from that Uncanny X-Men artwork. Onto the back of the box, we have the 3 figures again, each with their own respective accessories and more product information down the bottom. And finally, on that last side, it's renders of the 3 figures in their vanilla pose. So now let's go ahead and get this one open. Out of the box, the figures come with that all-paper cardboard insert. Accessories are on the top as well as on the front. The 3 figures are held in place over here. And flipping the front cover open, Gambit's head is already sticking out of the paper baggie. Just pulling that figure out. In the slim bag, we see Gambit's staff. And in the feather baggie that's stored down the front of the box, we have Gambit's accessories with 2 hands, a man bag, and some card effects. The middle figure is, of course, Banshee, and this is what he looks like out of the paper baggie. And taking a look at his accessories, he comes with 2 spare hands and an alternate head. Finally, the last figure is, of course, Psylocke, and this is what she looks like. Her accessories are stored in the baggie. It's more kind of twisted up. On one side we have her sword, and for the rest of it, some power effects and 2 alternate hands as well. Ladies first, and we're taking a look at Psylocke's accessories first. She comes with a katana in a translucent purple plastic, meant to look like her psionic powers. Of course, she holds onto her katana just fine in either of her gripping hands. She also comes with 2 power effects in the same translucent purple plastic. The flame effect part is meant to slide onto her psionic katana like so, while the other effect part can slide onto her other gripping hand as well. And we've seen these effect parts and her katana on the previous release of Psylocke. Next, she comes with 1 left fist and 1 right karate chop hand. These are cast in the yellow plastic and articulate inwards, as well as outwards. And of course, popping onto the figure just fine as well. You can also pop that psionic effect part onto her left fist for a snug fit. But I also just noticed that these hands are a little different from what's advertised on the box, which shows a left karate chop hand and a right fist instead. No big deal, but I thought it's just something that you should take note of. Onto Psylocke's sculpt. Naturally, she's on the same body mold as Storm that we've seen on the previous X-Men 3-pack. The only difference is that the use of lighter flesh tone paint for her neck compared to Storm. Her head sculpt is also brand new and contrasts nicely with the previous release of Psylocke. She's got a different hair sculpt, and of course the paint on her face is much higher resolution thanks to the digital dot matrix printing compared to the original release of Psylocke. I also do like her better on the new body mold because it's more curvy and muscular, making her look more kick-ass as a stylized ninja-style character. Her head sculpt is beautiful, really catching the essence of Psylocke's character. The colors for her eyes and eyebrows are really sharp, and I also like that subtle bit of blush, really bringing out the shape of her cheekbones, as well as her sharp nose. There's also nice red color for her lips. I do have a little bit of scuffing on her right eyebrow, so I'm fixing that with a dark gray Gundam marker to color in the eyebrow. Her hair sculpt also looks great. It is cast in a purple plastic with a dark gray or black wash to really bring out some of that textures. So you can see the waves in that hair neatly parted to one side of her head. I also like how the wash is applied fairly evenly, so you see the definition all over the hair sculpt. The rest of her body is what we've seen before. Yellow plastic for most of her torso, sharp blue paint applications for the stripes down the sides, also yellow plastic for her shoulders, with blue paint applications blending nicely into the blue plastic for the rest of her arms, until we hit her glove, which is in yellow. Strap detail on the gloves that matches her color, as well as the other straps on her body. She's accessorized by an iconic belt that's cast in a black plastic and the very eye-catching red paint for the X logo. Once again, the rest of her legs looks very clean, no paint application applications, but the separation of the blue and yellow plastics just looks really sharp, and overall it's the same good work that we've seen on the body that was used for Star, and I like how everything is executed on Psylocke once more. For articulation, her head is on a ball hinge, so that spins 360. Hair sculpt doesn't really get in the way, so you get also some sideways wiggle, able to look down all that much, as well as up a fair bit. Swivel hinge at the shoulders that go 360 as well as coming out quite good. Upper bicep swivel, pinless double jointed elbows for very good range. Swivel hinge at the wrist for 360 spin and articulating in and out. Mid torso ball joint that lets you spin her sideways. It's a little tight, able to get that sideways tilting going on as well, and a decent amount of forward bend as well as backward bend. Ball jointed hips that go out quite far. Also no problems forward and backward. Upper thigh swivel for 360 spin. Double jointed knees with the pins concealed. That also gets you very good range. There's no calf swivel even though it could be disguised by the strap on the boot. So that's a missed opportunity. And ankle tilt that goes up and down. And ankle pivot that goes out as well as in. Thanks to this new body, Psylocke is pretty well articulated and definitely poses much better than previous action figure releases of her. The head swap with the previous Psylocke figure is definitely possible, but the flesh tones don't really match too well, while the new head sits a little loose and a bit low on that old body. And conversely, the old head sculpt sits quite tight on the new one and also a little too high. And while this new figure only comes with a left fist, you can borrow that right fist from the Storm figure, and that means that you can pop on that psionic effect onto her right fist as well. And one more head swap, you could pop Rogue's head sculpt onto Psylocke's body. The flesh tone paint on the neck is quite a good match to the flesh tone plastic on the head sculpt, but it also kind of sits a little high, so you'll need to fudge some camera angles. Next up is Gambit, and he comes with his brown man bag, possibly for holding all his cards and other throwing accessories. This is the same sculpt that came with figures like the Green Goblin and Mary Jane, as well as Longshot. It's got the same sculpted details for the button and buckle on the front that's also painted in silver, and there's also another hit of silver over here. And of course, this bag slides over his arm and his head for him to hold on the side of his body. Next, he also comes with a staff that's cast in a silver plastic, and it's got segments sculpted into it. It's got the same sculpt as the previous Gambit figures, and this one also slides nicely into his right holding hand. He comes with a left gripping hand that's cast in a yellow plastic. This one articulates up as well as down. You can pop that left gripping hand onto the figure just fine, and of course it also holds his staff well. He also comes with two card effect parts. These are also the same sculpt that came with the previous Gambit figures. Once again also cast in that translucent pink plastic with paint to show the aces of the suits. The Ace of Hearts over here is strangely painted upside down, and there's actually no white paint for the backing of the cards. The card throwing hand also has a hit of yellow paint for his hand. He holds the charged card just fine in his left card wielding hand, and you can also pop on that left card throwing hand. But once again, because of the soft flexible plastic, it's all warped in packaging. Now on to Gambit Sculpt. He's on the X-Men uniform body. It's based on the Vulcan body mold. We've seen most of that on the previous Forge figure from the first X-Men 3-pack. And of course he's got a brand new head sculpt, as you can see compared to my retro Gambit over here. The new Gambit head sculpt is pretty good. The dot matrix printing definitely brings out a lot of those sculpted features much better, compared to the older paint technique on the older figure. This time Hasbro has executed this head sculpt correctly, using flesh toned plastic and paints for the other colors on his head. The high resolution printing means very sharp paint applications for his eyebrows. I like how his eyes also look, with the red on the black looking very distinct and really kick-ass. The subtle shading also brings out a lot of features on his face, like his sharp nose as well as his cheekbones and his pursed lips, and also a very heroic looking chin. So overall the expression is quite determined, but also has a little hint of that cockiness from Gambit's character. The black paint for the rest of the suit around his head, and the hair sculpt is also quite nice. It's quite long and also has suitable texture that shows how it's kind of flailing in the wind. A very characteristic Gambit hairstyle, and definitely really looks and goes very well with this head sculpt. Of course, the top of the neck is also painted in black to match the suit around his head, while the rest of the figure is the same good work that we've seen on Forge. So there's yellows for his torso up to his shoulders, blue paints for the stripes down the sides that goes and matches well with the blue plastic on his arms, accessorized with the yellow plastic on his gloves that have straps, and you see the same straps on his collar as well as on his legs. The rest of his legs is just the use of mixed colored plastics, but the yellows and the blues have very clean separation once more, so overall looking striking and neat. And of course he's accessorized by that really iconic belt that's cast in the glossy black plastic with red for the X and the stripe in the middle. For articulation, his head's on a ball hinge, so that spins 360. There's also a little bit of sideways wiggle. He's able to look down there far as well as up. Butterfly joints at his shoulders so he can pull his arms forward as well as backward that much. Swivel hinge at the shoulders that go 360 and come out quite a good bit beyond 90 degrees. Upper bicep swivel for 360 spin. Double jointed elbows with those pins concealed for a very good range. Swivel hinge at the wrist for 360 spin, articulating in and out. Well, on his right hand, it's sculpted a little bit like a trigger hand, and this is also from Forge, so it goes 360 swivel as well as articulating down and up, just like a trigger hand. Mid-torso hinge for good range, bending forward and backward. Swivel as well disguised by that belt, so he spins 360. Ball joints at the hips that go outward that much and forward and backward. Thigh swivel for 360 spin. Double jointed knees with those concealed pins as well and very good range. Swivel at the calf, once again disguised by that boot cuff. And of course there's ankle hinge that goes up and down and pivoting outwards as well as inwards. We know how well the Falcon body mold poses, and Gambit is no exception. I think he benefits from that butterfly joints, especially for throwing and fighting poses. He doesn't come with a set of fists, but being on the same body mold, of course he can borrow them from Forge or Banshee. Okay, so now we're gonna take a look at a couple of head swaps and part swaps. Over here I have on the left the VHS morph with his cell shading removed, and on the right I have the retro carded Gambit with a custom soft goods posable trench coat. So popping on Morph's head onto this Gambit's body, and also borrowing those yellow relaxed hands from Banshee, we can have a jacketless Morph. And the only thing is that there's some black paint remaining on the back of his neck. But this is a pretty cool kit bash of the jacketless Morph from the old Toy Biz toy line. And over here we have Gambit on Morph's body, just popping off that bomber jacket and borrowing that hard plastic trench coat from the retro carded Gambit. The brows between the sleeves and the trench coat are slightly different, but still a good enough close match. And now we have Gambit in his X uniform with his trench coat on. The only difference is his belt is a little different, and that's what came with Morph by default. And of course, in my opinion, it's always best to give Gambit his own posable fabric trench coat to get the best effect. And finally, we're looking at Banshee, and he comes with two relaxed hands. These are cast in the yellow plastic and are articulated inwards, as well as outwards, being exactly the same sculpt as those that came with the Vulcan body mold. So naturally, these relaxed hands pop onto the figure just fine. And he also comes with one alternate screaming head sculpt. I'll take a closer look at this together with his default head sculpt later on. Once again, Banshee is also on that same Vulcan body mold that's been redecoed into the X uniform colors. He's got a couple of retooled parts, and that's in his forearms, his torso, as well as his boots. And that's for the attachment of his glider wings. And of course, naturally, that popped collar on the top. So the highlight for me on Banshee is of course his two head sculpts, which are really well executed. Most of his head sculpt is in that flesh tone plastic, and you see the digital dot matrix printing, sharp paint applications, orange for his eyebrows, green and whites for his eyes, and of course some lip color, and the reds for the insides of his mouth and whites for his teeth. Really love how the paint applications are all really sharp, and I also like to point out that the Screaming head sculpt has a more reddish blush added to his cheeks. It's subtle, but it definitely shows how he's straining as he's exerting his screaming powers. His default head sculpt has a bit more of a cocky expression, and the hair sculpt is also different compared to the Screaming one. Both hair pieces are sculpted in a light orange plastic, and there's a darker orange wash just to really bring out all that texture. The default head sculpt has a neater hairstyle with mutton chops down the side and is nicely and neatly parted. The Screaming one, on the other hand, is more windswept. I really like how it is sculpted like it's flying in the wind. So there's really great sculpting and paint work on the entire head sculpt. Really impressive and very excellently executed. That Screaming head sculpt pops onto the body just fine, and now we have a look at the rest of his sculpt as well. The retooled upper torso has a popped collar and flash-tone plastic for the neck. We see the yellow plastic once again with very clear and sharp paint applications for the blue stripes down the side, just like the rest of the other X uniform bodies. It's now got a peg over here for the yellow plastic attachment that holds his glider wings. And this attachment can also rotate, just for you to pose the wings well. This attachment is also in a yellow plastic. And once we go down his arms, the same sort of work on the rest of the X uniform bodies, but now his gloves have that extra yellow plastic attachment as well to hold on to the stitching on his glider wings. The rest of the body is once again good work on that X uniform body. And now we come to the cuff on top of his boots. And that's where we once again also see that same yellow attachment just to hold his glider wings in place. The glider wings are a yellow synthetic fabric. There's black paint for his very iconic stripes down the wings. It looks really sharp from the front, but I also do wish that the back was also similarly printed with that black, because now the back of the figure just looks kind of dull. So no complaints on the sculpt of the figure. I think it works really well for Banshee, including that iconic popped color. I definitely see Hasbro releasing this in his yellow and green colorway. And now onto articulation. I won't repeat what I've shown on Gambit already, but I'll just show a couple of differences, how it moves together with his wings. So as you can see over here, he poses just fine, being able to move his arms and have most of his full range of motion. It definitely helps that the fabric wings are soft and can be moved around as you articulate all the parts of his body. So Banshee is really awesome to put in flight poses, particularly with his really cool and expressive head sculpt. But I also do wish that perhaps Hasbro could have just worked out a little bit more engineering so that he could swivel his gloves and pose that wings better. But otherwise, this is really a fantastic representation of Banshee. For size, Gambit stands the tallest at 6.5 inches, and that's about 16.5 centimeters. Banshee stands just over 6.25 inches, and that's about 16 centimeters. While Psylocke stands at almost 6 inches, and that's about 15 centimeters. I am absolutely loving how the yellow and blue team is looking over here. They really look fantastic together, and this is really ultimate 90s nostalgia. And throwing in a couple of Brotherhood of Evil Mutants in for good measure. And here they stack up against some Avengers. For comparisons with other lines, here they are with some G.I. Joe Classified series and some Star Wars Black series. This box set is fantastic, especially for fans of the 90s Uncanny X-Men. The head sculpts are beautiful, it's got a fun number of proper accessories, and the quality and feel of the articulation is superb. This set is really satisfying for me, and I cannot overstate my recommendation for these three figures. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, subscribe to my channel, or even hit the super thanks button. Thanks for watching, take care, and stay safe.